Hello, and welcome to what is my first YouTube stream. I'm actually recording this just to see if it works because I'm not that familiar with all the technology to do with this. So, what I want to do in this video is give you a detailed understanding of what I do when I teach English, because my method of teaching English, the past tense of banana method of teaching English, does differ quite significantly from the more traditional ways. And my method has come from over 30 years of teaching English in various parts of the world. So I really feel that the way that English is being taught right now in schools and in English language centers is not the best way for students. You might have heard a lot about student centered learning, this idea that students are the driving force behind how a teacher teaches. And my firm belief is if you use a book to teach English, by definition, that cannot be student centered learning. That is book centered learning. That is the teacher centered learning. If you stand in front of a class and you say, okay, we are going to go from unit 1 to unit 10 over the next 6, 7 months, academic year, whatever, you are clearly not working from the student's perspective. So, past tense of banana, we do work from the idea of truly student-centered learning. And we do this in a number of ways. First of all, we don't work from a book. I mean, that's if you really want to do student-centered learning, throw away your book and start generating your own material. And that might seem intimidating at first, but one of the things that I can discuss in this video is how you can create your own material. So when I meet my students for the first time, I think the most important thing is to find out exactly what their level is. And I don't mean in terms of A1, B2, C2, or even advanced, intermediate, beginner. I find those terms to be so broad that they are meaningless. In order to understand exactly how you can help a student improve their English, you must understand what their level is and what their problems are. What habitual mistakes do they make? What are their strong points? What do they find really easy? What do they just need a little bit of clarification on? And that should take a teacher about 3, 4 sessions to get a really good idea of what their level is. But that needs to be a priority for the teachers to understand that level to that depth. And then the other thing that I think the teacher needs to get is an understanding of what the students' interests are, what their personal experiences are, not just with language, but what are their interests? What do they do on a weekend? What motivates them to live their lives? And incorporate all of that information in the structure of the sessions, because that's what student-centered learning truly is. So it may seem, if you are a TEFL teacher, that just seems really intimidating. It's like, how, if I've got a classroom of even 10 students, but in a school, you're looking at what, 20 something students? How can you possibly understand the individual learning needs of a classroom full of students? But there are techniques. And these are the things that I teach English teachers. So although every student has their own destination, there are a lot of commonalities. So people want to be more fluent. People want to have a greater expanse of vocabulary. People want to have clarification in grammar. So it's almost that the destination is already laid out for you. And really, it's simply a matter of working out the balance and the mix between vocabulary and grammar and strengths and weaknesses, fluency levels, but there is a general destination area. The real difference comes in how you get the students to that destination. It's the journey that you take the student on that needs to be truly individual. So, what I do with my students, having got a great understanding of who they are and what they want, is to use that information, their experiences, their interests, to generate my teaching material. And for me, that's very easy. And I think once you understand the secrets of how to do that, it could be very easy for any teacher. So I tend to work with students who are 14 to 18, just coming to the end of their compulsory education, going to university. And there are a lot of commonalities that people have within those age groups. For example, one of the things that most mid-teens have is a cycle. And every 14, 15, 16-year-old has a story, an incident involving being on a cycle. So I will sit with my students and talk to them about that. So at the very beginning of all my sessions, I sit with my students and ask them how was their week? How was their day? What did you do at the weekend? And that encourages them to talk about their past. And I encourage them to use a collection of the 6 grammar structures that we have in English when we talk about the past. And while doing that, while getting them to talk, I will introduce new vocabulary to them. I will highlight grammar rules that they are using and should be using. And eventually, we will come to a story about them being on a cycle. And I know I have a piece of material that is ready and waiting for that occasion to happen. So when they talk about being on a cycle, I will ask them questions like, while you were cycling, did the chain ever come off the cogs? And honestly, they will look at me as if I am literally speaking a foreign language. And that's great because now I have the opportunity of explaining to them what a cog is, what a chain is, and also highlight the fact that I am using past continuous. When you were cycling, did the chain ever fall off the cogs? And from that, I can use that opportunity to put together a piece of an exercise that reinforces what they've learned and helps them to understand vocabulary and grammar even further. So I have something that I'm going to show you, and this is where my understanding of streaming really, really, I find it difficult. But let's see. So I need to present something. So I'm going to share my screen, and it's this. So hopefully you can see that. I am going to do it like this, so you can still see me at the bottom of the screen, hopefully, but we can see that we have a document about a cycle ride. And one of the things that I do with all my students is I change the name. It's a really small thing, but it makes the world of difference. I change the name of the people in the stories that I write. And it's very easy to do. So this one, the guy is called Suleiman, and Suleiman is a name that's very common in the country where I live. But I also teach online, and I have students all over the world. So I simply go into Google, ChatGPT, and say, what are the top 5 boys' names in X country? And then I will change this document because it just allows the student to feel what they are reading is relevant to them. And again, when you look at, let me stop this and I'll go back to me. When you look at the contents of these TEFL books, they almost always have content about English speaking countries. Why? Why? Just because you are learning English, it doesn't mean that the student will want to know about a festival in Canada or New Zealand or something. It's much more interesting for the student, much more appropriate, much more useful if the student learns about culture and events that are going on in their country, because that's what they're going to talk about to their friends, not some festival in the United Kingdom. So, what I do is I try to make it as relevant and appropriate to the student, but also to the country that the student is in. So, with this, we would get something like all my content has about 3 or 4 activities that the student has to do. So as you'll see with this one, they've got 4 activities that they have to do with this one document. So one of the things they have to do is fill in the blanks using the correctly conjugated verb. So we can see that very early on. Suleiman, past of stand, on the top of a long. And then the second section would be to select the correct word from 2 options. So here we have spent, past, 2 and 4, ground, floor, so, 2, things like that. They would have to choose which is the right word for the sentence. And then also the third activity would be to fill in the dotted line with the correct verb form, the correct word from the vocabulary list below. So when I give my students this document, the first thing I will draw their attention to is the vocabulary list. And this document will have been drawn up after I have had conversations with them in previous sessions about riding a cycle. And these words would have been used within those sessions. So this vocabulary list might change. It really depends on what the student said to me 2 or 3 sessions earlier. And this actually brings me to another point, that because the student is the one that creates the route to the destination of fluency, grammar understanding, expansive vocabulary, the student chooses the route. I never know more than 2 sessions ahead what I'm going to do. Often I will know what I'm going to do in the next session, but the session after that, I have almost no clue, because I rely on the activities and the events in the previous session to dictate what I will do in the following session. And that really ensures that the student is the one that creates the pathway to their destination, their goals. So the vocabulary list I have here might be very different to the students that I give it to next year. So, but all of those words on the vocabulary list will have been spoken, will have been explained in a previous session. So the students will go through the vocabulary list, see how many words they can remember without any context, without any help. What word do you know? And that is a great indicator for them to know how they are improving their English. So then what they would do is literally go through the document. So they would start at the very beginning and answer the questions, sections 1 or activity 1, 2, and 3, not 4 yet. So they would go through that. When it comes to the vocabulary list, if they couldn't remember it directly from their memory, they would have a look at the context and try to get it from the context. If that didn't work, I would give them a clue. And if that didn't work, I would mime it or try to get them to remember the situation in which that word was introduced to them. And it's only as a very last resort would I actually explain what the word means. So they have a long way to get to that word, many, many chances along the way. 10 times out of 10, they get to that word before I have to give it to them. And that's really it. They will go through this document and answer the questions bit by bit on their own. And then as a class, we will analyze the text. And this particular document is highlighting past perfect. And again, that's because at some point, a couple of weeks earlier, I would have gone through past perfect with my students. And now here I have a chance of them looking at past perfect in a text. And I will get them to explain why this has been written in past perfect. And that's really it. And this is very relevant to the student. this is something that is of interest to them, because like I say, most students, most teenagers, they have a cycle. And it really is just about ensuring that you really do deliver student-centered learning. And that's what Past Tense of Banana is all about. So if you are interested in having me help you, or one of the teachers that I work with at Past Tense of Banana, then get in contact. I think I can bring up yes. So hopefully there's a banner at the bottom of the screen. If not, it's contact at pasttenseofbanana.com. Just drop us an email, and we will help you with your English. And I think that is it. I'm going to leave it there. And thank you very much for staying with me this far into the video. Your commitment, your patience is really appreciated. And hopefully I will see you at a one-to-one or in a group session. All right, catch you later. Bye-bye now.